The word buyouts have been thrown around in the Flesh and Blood community quite a bit lately, and while I am fine with people talking about the subject, for the love of God, can we please stop using the word buyout every time card prices go up? Well, hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the channel. If you're not already subscribed, what are you? Chicken? So you might remember a recent video of mine where I talked about buyouts and, was trying to point out that, hey, all these rainbow foil equipment going up is not exactly a buyout. It's mostly just people picking up cards because they realize they're super cheap. But the topic is coming back up again because there are two cards from Outsiders that are going up in price, and those are Premeditate and Codex of Frailty. Now, to start off, I want to kind of go over what I personally think a buyout is, because what I've recognized is that there is no genuine definition of a buyout within the trading card game spaces, and so it seems like everybody has their own opinion as to what it means, so I'm going to give mine. Now, and I think many others became aware of the term buyout in about 2017 when it was happening with the Magic the Gathering reserved list. For those of you unaware, the reserved list is just a list that Magic the Gathering has of cards that will never be reprinted, sort of like the cold foil policy. And starting in about 2017, the investing side of trading card games started to get more popular within Magic, and so you would see cards on the reserved list, especially ones that weren't even playable, suddenly spike up in price overnight as they were bought out online. Now, this was either done by one wealthy individual or a bunch of more normal individuals, but you would see the same pattern repeat again and again. All of a sudden, a card that nobody wanted, nobody was paying attention to, there was no playability behind it, would suddenly shoot up overnight and then usually would crash back down not long later. So those were what were referred to as buyouts within the Magic the Gathering community. And so for me, that's how I view a buyout, for cards that have no reason suddenly spiking in price and all of a sudden they go up and then usually crash not too long after that because there's no actual demand holding up that price. And even looking at the past few months, all of the buyouts in Fab weren't really buyouts. The first was this Rounds on Me, which shot through the roof suddenly before ProQuest, but that's because everybody suddenly picked up on it being a counter to Fi, and Fi was expected to see a lot of play at ProQuest, so the card shot through the roof. The next ones were very recently all of the legendary equipment from the first couple of sets, and again, those are player pieces that people wanted to get, recognizing they were super cheap, and so the prices of them were jumping up. And now with Premeditate and Codex of Frailty, well, it's a very similar situation. Players are picking up the cards to play. Just a couple days ago, we had the Chicago Brawl, which was streamed on DM Armanda's channel. And in it, Azalea not only was the only hero to have 2 top 8s, but also won the event. And on top of that, she beat Michael Hamilton's Icelander twice. Needless to say, the hype for this hero has gone through the roof, and the 2 cards from Outsiders that are best with her are both Premeditate and Codex of Frailty. In fact, Codex of Frailty is seen as so strong, there are people already calling for its ban. But ignoring that, we've established that obviously there is super high demand for these cards. Now, we have the next piece of this, and that is that Outsiders hasn't even been out for a week. See, when new sets come out, the prices are usually here, and over the next 2 to 3 weeks, they start to climb down as more boxes are opened. This is a simple thing of the demand is up here, the supply is here, and as the weeks go on and people buy their cards, the demand for these start to go down because they've been picking up their copies. Meanwhile, the supply goes up, and usually you'll see it actually go the other way. There'll suddenly be more supply than there is demand because all the demand for it has been met, and then people stop opening boxes once there's no more value in it, and that's where you get that equilibrium. That's usually how things work. Within the first few weeks, sometimes a month, month and a half, you'll see the prices go down. Now, there can be times when prices go up. For instance, if pull rates are far lower than people thought they were, that can cause cards to go up in price. For example, the Marvels and the extended art equipment in Outsiders seem to have very, very low pull rates, and so the prices of those are staying quite high, and I wouldn't even be surprised if they just keep climbing up and up, which is fine considering those are collector's pieces, but obviously, Codex of Frailty and Premeditate are player's pieces. These are cards that people need for their decks. And simply put, because Outsiders has only been out for less than a week and the demand has suddenly shot up, well, normally you would have a demand supply, but now the supply is still here, but the demand has gone so high up, you can't even see my hand on camera anymore. What this results in is cards spiking in price. Premeditate on TCG players about $35 and Codex of Frailty is about $40. And this is very high for new Majestics that have just come out, considering most others usually cap out at maybe like $10, $15. Unless you are going to an event and you actually really need these cards right now, I urge people to not pay these prices. Again, the supply is here, the demand is here. Give it a few weeks and the supply will come up and the demand will also come down, and you will be able to pick up your copies for a more affordable price. That being said, they still will probably be the two most expensive Majestics out of the set. I do expect these to still be around $20, maybe $25, but compared to the $35 and $40, that is much more affordable. While I do understand the concern of cards suddenly spiking in price, I really don't like that the term buyout is thrown around so casually, because it does have a very negative connotation. And if there's somebody who's new to the game or is thinking about playing the game and they hear that word being thrown around, it could push them away. And the reason I don't like that is because it's not happening. This is an entirely player-driven price spike. It is not a buyout, and saying it's a buyout just gives a negative connotation to the game that is not realistic. If there are buyouts actually happening, that is perfectly fine for people to talk about and to say that it's happening, because I believe in telling the truth. But again, this is completely player driven. So calm down a little bit, give it some time, let the supply meet the demand, the prices will come down. Yes, they will still be the most expensive Majestics in the set, but that's fine. If they're the most powerful ones and Azalea is very popular, then of course, they're going to be expensive. But just wait a few weeks and you should be able to pick them up for a much more affordable price so you can get them for your decks and enjoy this wonderful game. Just again, for the love of God, can we please stop screaming buyout every time card prices go out? Like, just take a step back, take a deep breath, and think about it for a moment, and just consider any other possibility before you jump to that conclusion. Because more often than not, in Flesh and Blood, which is a player-driven game, the answer is not buyouts. It's simply that players want cards. If you liked this video and want to help support me, consider either becoming a channel member or checking out my Patreon. There are different levels of bonuses like early access to videos, signed cards, and even custom hero cards. And to those who are already supporting me, you have my deepest and most honest appreciation. It's because of all of you that I can continue to put in the work to bring the best content I possibly can to the Chadliest community in the TCG space. Thank you, my friends.